In the stark chill of the 13th century, the atmosphere crackles with both tension and frost. In these lands where breath crystallizes and faith divides, the Catholic Church turns its attention not to desert sands, but to the frozen landscapes of the north. The resonant clang of armor accompanies Teutonic Knights, their eyes alight with fervent zeal as they advance into Novgorod, a hardy territory that bows to neither pope nor emperor. From the shadows of exile emerges Alexander Nevsky, a prince yet young. He assembles men driven by faith and apprehension toward foreign deities. Their destiny will soon be etched onto the vast frozen expanse of Lake Peipus. Here, amidst the biting winds and groaning ice, the fate of religions and empires will hang precariously in the balance. Picture a world where the air is sharp and cold, where the very terrain seems a formidable adversary as we delve into the Northern Crusades, an ambitious chapter of history steeped in frost. This was a period when the Catholic Church, fueled by an intense desire, shifted its focus from the sun-drenched Holy Land to the icy regions of the Baltic. In the early 13th century, it dispatched knights clad in faith and ambition, seeking to expand Christendom's reach into the pagan and Orthodox strongholds. The papal call echoed across Europe, summoning knights to this new cold theater of conflict, where the promise of divine conquest and spiritual reward permeated the frosty air. This endeavor was more than a campaign for territory. It was about spiritual reclamation. As the Church aimed to convert heathens, populations including Estonians, Finns, and Russians, considered spiritually adrift, faced an encroaching force, adorned with symbols of conquest. Metal clashed, and prayers were carried on the winds of battle. The very ice beneath them bore the weight of this chilling crusade, where the clash of beliefs transformed snowy plains into battlegrounds. Western European elites, now looking northward, discovered fertile ground for holy war in the snow-covered lands beyond the sea. By decree of Pope Innocent III, a new kind of Holy Crusade was declared, targeting Livonia, Estonia, and further. This represented a demonstration of Christianity's power, a display of divine favor, and an effort to suppress pagan persistence. Consequently, Europe's courageous and venturesome embarked, eager to carve out new domains from the wild, wintry landscape. Unlike previous crusades, which encountered formidable forces, the Baltic offered adversaries perceived as less threatening and more spiritually astray. However, the Crusaders found not an empty stage, but a complex tapestry of societies rich in their own traditions, resilient enough to resist and survive. The Teutonic Knights, a recently formed military order, would spearhead this icy undertaking, poised to prove their courage against a fate intertwined with snow and frost. At the core of this frost-bound advance were the Teutonic Knights, having gained a reputation for discipline and ferocity after the Third Crusade. Initially conceived as healers, they evolved into seasoned warriors, their white cloaks marked by prominent black crosses, symbolizing their fusion of devotion and destruction. Their lives adhered to monastic rules and strict vows, their celibacy and poverty setting them apart as holy soldiers with a divine purpose. These knights were not merely fighters, they imposed a code of order and unforgiving justice on lands awaiting their iron grip. Their sacred missions sanctioned by papal blessing, they became a formidable dual power, both military and political, gaining control and imposing their rule. By the early 1200s, their attention turned towards Novgorod, a principality as unfamiliar as any they had encountered in the east. Situated along Russia's major rivers, Novgorod remained steadfast against this approaching tide. It was a bustling center of trade and Orthodox faith, defended by groaning wooden fortifications. The cold river winds could not extinguish the fierce spirit of its inhabitants, who fiercely defended their rights amidst the frozen streets. To the Crusaders, Novgorod represented a prize, promising both spiritual and material gain, a stronghold of orthodoxy resisting the Catholic advance. Yet this was more than just a military confrontation. It was a clash of ideologies. The Catholic Crusaders viewed their Orthodox adversaries as having strayed from the true path. Conversely, for the people of Novgorod, Orthodoxy was a vibrant and enduring heritage, ancient and inviolable. As cultural successors of Byzantium, they considered themselves not lost sheep, but guardians of a proud legacy. In their eyes, the Latin Crusaders were unwelcome invaders, driven by arrogance masked by claims of sanctity. Therefore, as the Teutons assembled under their stark banners, preparing for a holy war unlike any other, the frozen battlegrounds beckoned. Knights from across the Holy Roman Empire gathered in prayer and readiness, motivated by the promise of eternal glory. Allied with the Livonian Brothers of the Sword and local forces, a diverse battalion with varying origins and ambitions was formed, warriors traversing perilous snows driven by faith and the pursuit of fortune. The Russian winter awaited them, a formidable force in itself. The knights struggled through Arctic blizzards, their breath visible against the somber sky, burdened by armor more suited to milder climates than relentless cold. Nevertheless, their spiritual calling resonated more loudly than the biting wind, a guiding light leading them through this divine campaign. Adaptation was crucial for the success of their holy quest. The siege of Pskov served as their initial test, a stepping stone towards Novgorod. The wooden defenses of the Kremlin, cloaked in winter's white, braced for the assault. It was a clash of steel and fire, walls holding firm through bravery and strategy before eventually yielding to the siege. However, victory was accompanied by a chilling preview of what lay ahead. The immense, frozen Lake Peipus, where upon its icy surface, fate would soon reveal itself in unyielding frost and legendary blades. In the cold embrace of 13th century Eastern Europe, a young prince was propelled onto the stage, illuminating the frosty landscapes of Novgorod with a foresight beyond his years. At just 20, Alexander Nevsky assumed the mantle of leadership, a role typically reserved for seasoned statesmen. The political currents of Kievan Rus carried him to a throne surrounded by threats. Born in 1221, Alexander was steeped in Orthodox traditions and the complex power dynamics of his father's court. His youth posed no obstacle to the weighty responsibility of leadership. As the heir of Novgorod, keenly aware of the pine forests and the distant menace of foreign banners, he felt the quiet anticipation of a destiny unfolding. Novgorod was a city that required a leader capable of navigating its intricate system of self-governance and ensuring its survival. Alexander's mind was a forge of strategic thinking, sharpened by the constant pressure of threats, both internal and external. The Swedes, Mongols, and Western Crusaders circled him like predators around their prey. Yet this young prince forged alliances with the skill of a master craftsman, establishing ties with the formidable Mongols, who, paradoxically, provided a buffer against chaos on the Eastern Front. His political maneuvering was subtle, a delicate balance of resilience and cunning that often left adversaries pursuing shadows. By challenging the advancing Western Crusaders and their papal authorities, Alexander stood firm as a guardian of orthodoxy. His refusal to submit to Latin rites was a calculated risk, a strategic game played out on the grand stage of beliefs and borders. This stance earned him both animosity and admiration, marking him as a defender of a cultural and spiritual identity that was as much a battlefield as any lake or plain. The scent of incense mingling with the echoes of church bells became the anthem of a people united against the erosion of their traditions. Novgorod itself was more than just a city, it was a beacon of spiritual resilience. Alexander's rule not only fortified walls, but also the very essence of Rus's identity. His deep and unwavering piety resonated with the soul of a populace seeking comfort amidst turmoil. The Orthodox Church was not merely an institution, it was a collective heartbeat, pulsating with the rhythm of survival and faith. Alexander harnessed this, framing every struggle as a divine battle and binding his people together in a shared destiny. However, survival demanded more than spiritual dynamism. It required military brilliance. Alexander's strategic acumen was legendary. Where raw courage was insufficient, cunning prevailed. The Neva River bore witness to this when Swedish ambitions crumbled under his swift, unexpected attack. Here, amidst the clash of sword on shield and the sharp bite of winter's chill, his reputation as a military saint was cemented. His victories were as much psychological as physical, an intricate dance of strategy and deception. Among medieval warlords, Alexander was distinct, a master manipulator of perceptions. He understood that winning involved shaping the enemy's expectations, becoming unpredictable and elusive. Whether through misinformation that sowed confusion or through coordinated movements that bewildered foes, his approach shifted the dynamics of conflict. Information was his weapon, deception his shield, and in the subtle art of warfare, he excelled beyond swordsmanship. Beyond military matters, Alexander's tools included charm and profound devotion. His interactions extended beyond sword-wielding warriors to encompass commoners and nobles alike. Deep in the cold Russian lands, his authenticity and piety offered solace to many, earning him allies among leaders and loyalty from his subjects. It was a leadership style that favored dialogue over decree, offering glimpses of shared aspirations over blunt commands. Within this blend of devotion was an essential ruthlessness, a duality as ancient as the frozen ground beneath his feet. Benevolence was balanced by a steely resolve that met threats with decisive impassivity. His faith, while guiding him, did not prevent him from acting with calculated ferocity when circumstances demanded a less gentle approach. Alexander's lasting legacy was not limited to fields of blood and valor. It unfolded in palaces and streets, in scriptoriums and monasteries, each serving as a defense against cultural erosion. Under his governance, Novgorod thrived with cultural vitality, preserved against Western influences, seeking to extinguish its inner light. His rule fostered the arts, upheld the law, and maintained a distinct Russ's identity amidst upheaval. His story, like a northern folktale passed down through centuries, found parallels with other young heroes. His narrative of youthful resilience and leadership resonated universally, drawing comparisons to figures such as Henry VIII or Joan of Arc. In these echoes across time and space, Alexander's tale remained a testament to youthful determination in the face of overwhelming odds. Long after his life ended at 42, the legend of Alexander Nevsky continued to resonate throughout history. He was canonized, celebrated, his life immortalized in vivid, larger-than-life portrayals of battle and governance. His influence extends beyond Russian historical records, serving as a reminder of the timeless struggle between principle and oppression, of identity strengthened by faith and protected by the unwavering resolve of conviction. His legacy is a symphony of resilience and moral certainty, echoing through history like the peal of a monastery bell carried by the wind. The northern wilderness stretches vast and unforgiving, a snow-laden expanse that poses a formidable challenge to all who dare to traverse it. Into this frozen realm march the Livonian Brothers of the Sword, their gleaming chainmail contrasting sharply with the dull white backdrop. Each step crunching in the pristine snow is a testament to their endurance and unwavering faith. These knights are driven not solely by conquest, but by a spiritual mission to spread their gospel deep into heathen territories. Their war banners, adorned with crosses and divine symbols, defiantly flutter in the bitter wind, proclaiming their sacred duty to the lands and serving as a warning to those who oppose them. As they press forward, the cold cuts like a knife, hardening their resolve. It is a march of both conquest and faith, each footfall echoing in the silence of the wild, signaling the knights' intention to inscribe a new chapter of blood and belief in Russ's ancient history. The air is heavy with the weight of their presence, charged with a sense of a world on the brink of transformation, a collision of blood, faith, and the unwavering conviction of men driven by righteous purpose and heavenly mandate. In these harsh, icy wildernesses, where most creatures and men falter, the knights' determined advance transforms the landscape into a theater of sacred struggle. Pskov, resilient and formidable against the encroaching winter, stands as a stronghold amidst the endless whiteness. Here, wood, rock, and the steadfast spirit of its defenders combine to form something more profound than mere fortress walls. Yet against the might of the Livonian brothers and their Teutonic allies, the city faces a storm of terrifying power. The knights arrive like a bitter gale, bringing with them not just steel, but a chilling determination, as though gods themselves had taken up arms against a besieged city. Steeds trample, banners fly, and a calculated ruthlessness that chills more deeply than frost spills over the fortifications. Inside Pskov, defenders clad not in shimmering mail, but in courage and humble cloth, prepare for a siege of epic proportions. Though their ferocity burns like a forge's fire, they are simply outmatched by the grim determination and organized military skill of their adversaries. Ultimately, Pskov's fall becomes more than just a defeat. It is a haunting testament to the invaders' lethal efficiency and the brutal effectiveness of their devotion. Each street strewn with rubble and every scorched tower bears witness to this new reality, territory reshaped by the sword's edge and the cross's shadow. As the Crusaders advance further, the snow-covered lands become vistas of unyielding harshness and quiet beauty. The knights encounter ancient traditions etched into every village and hamlet, foreign to them, yet undeniably real in their richness. Each passing banner leaves an indelible mark, part of a larger tapestry woven through centuries of conflict and cultural interaction. Across snowy fields and winding forest paths, the knights press forward, carrying out a campaign driven by both territorial ambition and the elusive goal of converting or conquering hearts and lands fortified by enduring tradition. Between battles, an eerie tranquility settles upon the silent winter landscape, a stark contrast to the knights' symbols of power and faith. Here, emblems convey more than words. Each cross stitched into armor or painted on shields represents a divine mission and worldly conquest. And yet, as sunsets cast long shadows over their ranks, there is a haunting awareness of the fleeting impermanence of both ambition and belief. These patches of embroidered faith inspire courage and honor, recalling ancient rivalries, even as they forge paths towards unmarked futures. Behind their advance, the reality of conquest is both ideological and undeniably material. Fortresses fall and treasures accumulate at their feet, symbols of both divine approval and earthly triumph. Victory carries its burdens. Spreading faith through force can breed envy or dissent among allies vying for spoils. Greed and corruption lurk beneath the facade of holiness. Petty rivalries can weaken alliances more quickly than any enemy arrow or sword. Such victories bestow not only tangible wealth, but also the heavier weight of moral ambiguity, where the lines between holy reward and earthly temptation blur into a murky, uncertain haze. The clash of worlds both enriches and complicates. It creates complex interactions between old gods and the new, blending Mediterranean knowledge with northern tenacity, even as conflict denies peace. As they navigate this labyrinth of cultures, the knights' fervent proselytizing intertwines with an enriching, yet contentious coexistence. The mixing of peoples and beliefs after each confrontation, blurring the sharp divisions of conflict, transforms foes into neighbors and oppressors into partners. Together, even amid strife, they forge a new, shared reality from threads of animosity and hope alike. The raw impetus of conquest reveals war's stark truths as ideals of glory succumb to the cold emptiness of struggle and mortal burdens. Amidst heroic narratives and the embrace of valor lies the persistent yearning for glory, pursued through relentless ambition. Here, the flesh itself becomes the currency exchanged for aspirations of divine providence. Conquest exposes profound vulnerabilities. Lofty ideals ground down beneath the harsh realities of blood and toil, fueled by the fires of belief, courage, and vanity, intertwined across unseen vast distances. In the wake of all these legendary pursuits, the most human cost is exacted, a toll on both body and spirit. Among their encampments lie spaces devoid of hope, where snow falls silently upon those who have sacrificed and those who survive. Banners once flown in triumph now rest in quiet judgment over fields of conflict, where conquest intersects with bitter lessons and stark resolve, bearing the price of lives marked by boldness and consecrated vision. As stained steel endures beneath the lines once forged with might, the echoes of conflict fade into eternity's chill, yet persist within unwavering depths. History's tide reshapes destiny as it whispers eternal truths, drawn not solely from the past, but from the human soul. Alexander Nevsky's return from exile was like a storm breaking on the horizon, the very storm that swirled over a fractured land. Once banished by political rivals, this young prince had been tempered by his experiences, returning to find Novgorod and his homeland teetering on the brink of chaos. Knights from the west posed a threat to Russian soil, and his comeback was met with anticipation, a buried hope for a leader to unite them. The prince was a figure shaped by destiny, marked by a wisdom that belied his years, a trait deepened by the scars of banishment. Hailed as a harbinger of providence, Alexander stood as a symbol of unity in a land as divided as the frozen Lake Peipus, where pride and rivalry mirrored the cracks in the ice. The climate was ripe for unity against the metal-clad Crusaders who sought not just territories, but to reshape souls. Alexander's charisma became a rallying cry as he transformed the people's suspicions into trust, weaving narratives of survival and unity that transcended disagreements. His rhetoric was rich and compelling, appealing to a sense of home, of the ancestral motherland, deeply ingrained in the Russian consciousness. His words resonated far into forests and across fields, mobilizing a gathering of forces. The call reached from bustling cities to secluded monasteries, urging unity as the only means of survival. This unity brought together desperate city militias with seasoned forest fighters, even rural volunteers who knew every icy path and dense wood intimately. These were not merely soldiers. These were men whose lives were intrinsically linked to the land they defended. Under Nevsky's banner, they formed a composite force, a reflection of their land, each contingent contributing their unique strengths and local knowledge to forge a cohesive unit. With conviction, Alexander framed the impending conflict as one of faith, emphasizing that their battle was a defense against an aggressor's spiritual intrusion. His words evoked visions of past holy wars and unwavering saints. For this deeply spiritual people, it wasn't just territory at stake, it was their very souls. In this narrative, faith was transformed from an abstract concept into a tangible call to duty. Across the land, Orthodox priests walked among the people, their voices echoing Nevsky's proclamations. Icons and relics were brought forward, not as mere artifacts, but as embodiments of strength, transforming soldiers' fear into righteous indignation. Women, often relegated to the background in historical records, played indispensable roles, sustaining armies not with sword or shield, but by nurturing life and morale. They tended to the wounded, fed the hungry, and reinforced the fabric of resilience that Nevsky's army proudly wore into battle. They were carriers of stories that fueled determination, providing the emotional mortar that bound together the stones of courage and hope. Alexander's strategy did not rely solely on the fervor of his army. He understood the psychology of patience, wielding it as a weapon sharper than any steel. He exploited the weariness and certainty of the Crusaders, using the environment itself as an ally, transforming the anticipated battlefield into one of ice and strategic maneuvering. Nevsky's forces were not as heavily armored, but they possessed the advantage of resilience and intimate knowledge of the terrain. Their tactics, born of necessity and guided by cunning, introduced guerrilla strategies that echoed the legends of ancient tricksters under the Slavic stars. On the eve of the great battle, anticipation hung in the cold air like fog above the moors. Fires flickered, casting dancing shadows against the apprehension within. Each soldier prepared, engaging in personal rituals rooted in old traditions, their hopes fixed on the coming dawn, a day that promised neither comfort nor resurrection, but combat against a foe wielding iron and imposition. Facing the conflict, Alexander's words became their guiding light, painting images of shared struggle and collective hope. His leadership merged with their spirit, forming a spearhead aimed not only at defending their land, but also at forging a future for their children. The prince's tactic of patience turned uncertainty back upon the Crusaders, subtly undermining their confidence. In contrast, hope and fear were intertwined in the Russian psyche. Each breath driven by fear was mirrored by a heart emboldened by hope. The people, imbued with faith, clung to symbols merged with ancient spirits, whispers woven into hymns against the winter's chill, murmuring of a better tomorrow. And as battle neared on that frozen lake, Alexander stood not alone, but enveloped within a tapestry of bravery, heritage, and a pulse of life that refused to be extinguished even by the harshest cold. In the frozen heart of the Baltic region, Lake Peipus lay silent and forbidding under a sheet of ice. It was April, and the landscape seemed suspended in a fragile pause between the harsh grip of winter and the tentative whispers of spring. Here Alexander Nevsky, the young prince of Novgorod, had chosen to confront the invading Teutonic Knights. His decision to engage on the ice was bold, yet it reflected his mastery of strategy and deep understanding of the land's temperament. The frozen lake was more than just a backdrop. It was a silent ally, poised to tip the scales of battle. For Nevsky, the choice was not arbitrary. With his intimate knowledge of the terrain, he had orchestrated conditions where the land itself was his accomplice. The ice appeared solid, a deceptive surface concealing its treacherous depths like a cunning collaborator. Alexander knew that beneath its sturdy facade lay the potential for disaster, an element that would challenge the resolve of the arrogantly advancing knights. The plan was not to meet them head-on with superior numbers or brute force, but to transform their overconfidence into a fatal weakness. The Teutonic Knights, resplendent in their gleaming armor, marched into what they viewed as a straightforward conquest. They were seasoned Crusaders, propelled by the dual forces of faith and military pride. Yet as they advanced, the weight of their metal-clad righteousness became a potential impediment. This was unfamiliar territory, both in its icy nature and its historical context, confronting an opponent who was playing a long game, weaving strategy with folklore and the subtle influence of old legends carried on the wind. Nevsky's forces waited, a human crescent bordering the ice. Their formation, bent but unbroken, mirrored the natural curves of the lake's perimeter. This shape was not merely for appearance, it was strategically brilliant. Positioned on the flanks were archers, cleverly waiting to unleash chaos at a signal, and cavalry hidden in the shadows of the forest, poised like a serpent ready to strike. This positioning promised flexibility, a way to either surge forward or draw inward, luring the enemy into a carefully prepared trap. On that early April morning, the air was thick with a silence that the soldiers knew was temporary. The anticipation was a tangible force, pressing down upon the men gathered on both sides. Russian soldiers murmured prayers, their voices blending with the morning mist, while their enemies watched from afar, their breasts forming fleeting clouds of devotion and determination. These rituals were more than just formalities. They were integral elements in the tapestry of medieval warfare, where blades were blessed and each individual hoped for a favorable divine gaze. Then came the decisive moment, the initial clash. The knights surged forward, a storm of steel advancing onto the unsuspecting ice. Across the lake rumbled the ominous groans of protest, a sound that resonated through the frigid air like an unwelcome prophecy. Nevsky's troops braced themselves, embodying their leader's unwavering spirit as the armies met in a cacophony of metal and shouts that shattered the serene cold. As the battle unfolded, the ice beneath them began its sinister dance. For the heavily armored knights, each stride became a perilous undertaking. Nature was impartial. It was simply a matter of readiness, and Nevsky's troops, trained for such shifting ground, gained the advantage. As the mounting pressure and chaos splintered the ice, soldiers vanished into the freezing water, a brutal reminder of nature's indifferent power. Nevsky's strategy was proving effective. The knights, undone by their belief in their own invincibility, struggled on a battleground carefully designed to exploit their every vulnerability. With the knights now in disarray, Nevsky unleashed his cavalry from their forest sanctuary. This was the moment he had anticipated. The prelude had ended, and it was time to deliver the decisive blow. The knights, caught in a fatal struggle on splintering ice, became easy targets for his forces' swift and merciless assault. The dream of conquest began to unravel into a frozen nightmare as their orderly lines fragmented into chaos. The outcome at Lake Peipus was more than just a military victory. It was a testament to the interplay of strategy and cunning over brute force. The battle's result was determined not solely by iron and piety, but by the clever utilization of the environment and human ingenuity. Nevsky's triumph not only halted a Western crusade, but also secured the cultural and religious autonomy of his realm. The lake that day bore witness to a decisive turning point in history, its depths silently cradling the echoes of clashing ideologies and the weight of arrogance drowned by the unforgiving ice. April 5th, 1242. On this day, Lake Peipus, a vast frozen expanse, became a natural stage for the unfolding events. The sky was an austere winter blue, the horizon blurred by the icy landscape. The cold was intense, slicing through layers of armor as if searching for vulnerabilities. The lake, solid yet hinting at underlying tension, waited in silence. The Teutonic Knights, clad in shining armor, found themselves in this alien environment, confident yet unprepared for its potential treachery. Their polished steel gleamed against the rugged simplicity of the Russian defenders. Cloaks adorned with emblazoned crosses fluttered in the brisk wind, symbols of a sacred mission and quest for redemption and glory. Yet this intimidating force sensed an uneasy awareness of the terrain they were poised to claim. Meanwhile, the Russians, native to this landscape, understood its hidden power. Their resolve, understated and humble, contrasted sharply with the grandeur before them. Each Russian soldier knew the ice could become their ally against these oblivious invaders. The knights advanced, disciplined and fierce, spearheading the charge in an axe-head formation, an iron fist ready to strike. The rhythmic pounding of hooves and the clatter of armor resonated across the frozen void, breaking the morning silence. It was a fearsome sight, a symphony of menace and ritual. Each knight was driven by a collective belief in a heavenly reward for their crusade, a faith that echoed in their hearts beyond the battle's brutality. Their swords, sharp and prepared, led them forward with a unified prayer for victory. In contrast, the Russians, strategically positioned in crescent formations, braced for impact without flinching. What ensued was a collision where time seemed to dissipate, leaving chaos to reign. Steel met iron in a visceral melee, a convergence of worlds where agony and struggle were interwoven into the larger cultural conflict. Each Russian, forged from the harsh elements, defended with unwavering resolve, making this clash more than mere combat. It was a symbolic duel between two opposing faiths and identities. As the hours wore on, the fighting devolved into an exhausting melee, a test of sheer will where neither side gained dominance. Locked in hand-to-hand combat, fighters became indistinguishable in the pandemonium. No longer individuals, but extensions of a desperate struggle. The clangor of swords against axes echoed far, like spectral bells tolling over the wilderness. This scene transformed the battle into a primal rite, transcending borders and beliefs, a raw, relentless fight for survival. Amidst the noise, fleeting moments of personal stories emerged and vanished. A peasant warrior met a knight's gaze before striking or falling. These brief encounters encapsulated the tragedy of cultures at war, quickly becoming sanguine imprints in the ice, marking not just territories, but the essence of humanity's relentless struggle for identity. The battle was as much about faith as it was about dominance. For the Teutonic Knights, it represented redemption, a divine mission of salvation under the cross. They fought, died, and prayed, believing their military triumph was God's will enacted through their actions. In contrast, the Russians fought to preserve their faith and identity, resisting the Western advance. Each warrior embodied the unyielding spirit of their ancestors, safeguarding orthodoxy and national heritage with fervent conviction. For them, it was an act of cultural defiance, a declaration of existence beyond the battlefield. This struggle elevated the stakes beyond mere conquest. It was about preserving a distinct identity, deeply woven into sacred practices and collective consciousness. Meanwhile, Lake Peipus played its own spectral role. Although seemingly solid, the ice murmured under the growing weight, its voice merging with the clamor of war. This frozen stage represented nature's treacherous potential in human conflicts. The lake remained impartial, silently observing. Yet its icy breath introduced an unpredictable element to the day's outcome. It served as a reminder of the delicate balance between glory and disaster, where human ambition confronts nature's stoic presence. In the chaos, Russian determination remained steadfast, unfazed by the Knights' formidable advance. Bruised and bloodied, the defenders held firm, knowing all too well that the land behind them could not be surrendered. Their resolve was an unyielding spirit drawn from ancient traditions, stories, and songs celebrating their defiance. The Knights' strength was met by an equal force in this unassuming resilience, a subtle grace in battling armored giants with symbolic identity. Despite the cold and chaos, the Russians persisted through tactics and ingenuity. The truest reflection of their soul lay not in their armor, but in the strength of their hearts. Amidst this chaos lay an irony. The opulent knights in their gleaming armor seemed invincible, commanding awe and fear with their steel and symbolism. Yet concealed within lay their vulnerability. The Russians, in humble furs and functional metalwork, exhibited practical efficiency and adaptability, rooted in understanding their unforgiving environment. The knights' grandeur contrasted with Russian simplicity, yet this offered the latter an unnoticed advantage in their flexibility. Victory here was not adorned with splendor, but forged from necessity. The sounds of warfare resonated as a chaotic symphony, the clash of steel, shouts of anguish and triumph, chants and final breaths. This primal orchestra echoed over the ice while the lake listened silently, remembering every tremor. Beneath romanticized chivalry lay a stark cost. Behind these scenes were bodies, extinguished dreams, halted narratives. Each fallen warrior served as a testament within history's grand narrative, where sacrifices are interwoven into collective human memory. This day on the ice left a tapestry of valor, defiance, and the brutality of medieval life. Lake Peipus, now tranquil, holds lessons of ambition, faith, and consequence. It's a reminder of the intricate dance between culture and conflict, transcending time, offering insights into coexisting amidst clashing destinies. As dawn broke over Lake Peipus, a biting chill filled the air, mingling with the tense anticipation. Alexander Nevsky had chosen this frozen battlefield with a strategist's cunning, betting on his understanding of the land. The ice, thick yet fatefully fragile in early April, was both an ally and a trap. His men waited, concealed among the frosted trees, exchanging whispers as they prepared to lure the Livonian knights onto the treacherous ice, an ambush set with nature as a silent partner. The knights, feeling divinely favored in their chain mail and white-crossed banners, rode confidently across the expanse. To them, the ice was merely a stage to display their military prowess. Unbeknownst to them, what lay beneath was a precarious foundation ready to give way. Nevsky's troops, accustomed to the harsh climate, held their breath tight in the cold air, poised like spectral figures hidden amidst the wintry woods, ready for their moment to strike. Time seemed to slow as they watched the knights, led by their own arrogance, march into the unfolding trap. The clash began with a cacophony of clanging metal, resonating like discordant strings across the glacial surface. Knights charged in meticulously crafted formation, their lances aimed like a beast's jaw at the Russian ranks. It was more than a battle of swords, it was a confrontation of ideals. The air filled with a clamorous roar of conflict as steel struck wood, and shouts of defiance echoed against the silent sky. Yet the knights' cohesion began to unravel, slowly fracturing in the face of Nevsky's calculated tactics. The storm of combat continued relentlessly, every inch of ice stained by the fervor and desperation of warriors clashing from dawn until dusk. The Germans, burdened by their heavy protective metal shells, struggled against the fierce resistance. Ironically, the very armor intended to ensure their invincibility became their greatest obstacle. Each heavy step only served to deepen their struggle, as if the land itself conspired against their armored arrogance. In the midst of the chaos, the ice beneath cried out, unnoticed, yielding under the weight of the warring armies. Nature revealed her hand, indifferent and all-powerful, as a tremor ran through the ranks. Horses stumbled, their hooves searching for purchase, betraying their esteemed riders. A telltale cracking echoed, a harbinger of doom that grew louder, as those involved realized the trap they had unwittingly sprung. The army was now at the mercy of a lake transformed into a merciless adversary. Then came the climax. Nevsky's cavalry surging from the forest edge like an unleashed torrent. Skilled and sure-footed, they enveloped their enemy in a meticulously planned circle of retribution. What had been a calculated stillness erupted into an orchestrated onslaught as arrows and swords rained down from all directions. The knights' once unwavering hearts wavered between fighting and fleeing, their fortified resolve cracking along with the ice beneath them. Panic swiftly replaced order within the ranks of the Crusaders, their frantic retreat morphing into an uncontrolled flight. Men stripped of their self-proclaimed sanctity scrambled to escape the twin threats of drowning beneath the ice and succumbing to their foes' relentless assault. It was a brutal awakening to their mortality, stark and unforgiving against the cold indifference of the frozen landscape. The ice's betrayal was palpable, its surface giving way to reveal the abyssal depths within, swallowing armored knights without hesitation. Standards and helmets alike vanished beneath the chilling waters, silenced forever by the suffocating cold. Nevsky's men halted at the brink of triumph and tragedy, acknowledging the powerful ally that was nature herself. This victory, etched into history, spoke not only of military prowess, but also of survival and an understanding of an unforgiving environment. The bitter legacy of Lake Peipus became a touchstone of remembrance, transforming into tales told by fireside, whispering of a battle fought and won, not by might alone, but through wit and terrain. Yet amidst the triumph lay a profound realization. Victory was not measured solely in conquest, but in the enduring spirit that resisted yielding to foreign domination. In the shadows of defeat, the narrative whispered through the lands of those who had lost, portraying the knights not just as thwarted invaders, but as grieving pilgrims caught in the throes of defeat. Their misguided belief in divine favor now lay shattered beneath the ice, becoming a lament sung within their domain. The failure echoed through chronicles across Europe, a cautionary tale woven with threads of spiritual pride and the hubris of expansion unchecked by reality. Nevsky himself emerged from this grim theater as a beacon in the chronicles of resistance, his story growing in the telling, an emblem of defiance and an icon of strategic brilliance. Lake Peipus was not merely a battleground, it stood as a testament to human ambition, struggle against the wild and the unknown. By freezing its story into legend, the lake silently guards its secrets, resonating with the echoes of a time when men dared to tread where ice and belief intertwine. In the aftermath of the icy clash, the once formidable Crusaders, their pride shattered alongside the frozen lake, found themselves in disarray. The fervent anticipation of victory quickly dissolved into a chaotic retreat, their once orderly formations now a frantic scramble across the ice. As shadows lengthened over Lake Peipus, their banners waved not as symbols of triumph, but as tokens of humility. The retreat was a desperate flight rather than a calculated military maneuver. What was intended as a triumphant crusade in the name of faith had ended with echoes of despair and betrayal. Cold winds hastened their departure, a fitting conclusion to their uninvited incursion into the heart of Novgorod. Alexander Nevsky, the young prodigy of Novgorod, stood victorious amidst the echoes of battle. On the blood-soaked ice, he cemented his place in history, crafting a narrative of cunning, overcoming brute force. At just 20, he had orchestrated a grand display of defiance against the heavily armored Crusaders, leveraging the ice as an unwitting ally. Under his leadership, a diverse assembly of farmers, craftsmen, and forest dwellers found strength not in organized armor, but in their indomitable spirit. Nevsky's victory on this frozen expanse did more than repel the Western advance. It served as a testament to the resilience and unity of Novgorod's people and their Orthodox faith. This stunning victory reshaped the political map of Eastern Europe. Novgorod, no longer merely a remote outpost, emerged as a symbol of autonomy and resistance. Its independence, reaffirmed by this military success, protected its vital trade routes and sent ripples through the courts of Europe. Diplomatic circles buzzed with tales of Nevsky's strategic prowess, serving as a deterrent to future aspirations of conquest. The victory was more than territorial. It was a vindication of faith and a demonstration of self-determination amidst the looming shadows of continental powers. For the defeated Teutonic Order, the defeat was more than a military setback. It was an identity crisis. Tending to their wounds in the cold halls of their Baltic castles, they faced the humbling task of reconciling their divine mission with the harsh realities of failure. The battle at Lake Peipus forced a re-evaluation of their strategies, prompting debates among their ranks about balancing their spiritual aims with earthly constraints. Nature, once underestimated, had become an adversary as formidable as any sword. Within the Eastern Orthodox Church, Nevsky's triumph resonated as divine affirmation. This clash of creeds, steel against spirit, had ended with orthodoxy holding firm, imparting a renewed vigor to the faithful. The Church saw in Nevsky not only a hero, but a symbol of divine purpose fulfilled, his legacy woven into the fabric of faith with renewed hope and resilience. Celebrations across Novgorod were as much about spiritual triumph as military victory. In churches and homes, the faithful offered prayers filled with gratitude and relief. Nevsky's diplomatic skill was as sharp as his military acumen. Understanding the might of the Mongols and their occasional religious tolerance, he forged a delicate balance with the Golden Horde. By choosing strategic submission over outright conflict, he secured a fragile peace that allowed Novgorod to flourish amidst turbulent times. This pragmatic approach preserved Orthodox identity while ensuring the city's independence, allowing Novgorod to thrive under the looming shadow of the Mongol Empire. The Battle of Lake Peipus transcended its era, evolving into a lasting symbol of Eastern defiance. The victory told a grand tale of unity and defiance, whispering through the annals of history as a parable of endurance against overwhelming odds. In the arts, stories, and collective memory, Nevsky became a permanent figure, a man transformed into a legend, embodying the spirit of resilience against the encroaching tide. His deeds, spun into tales told by fireside and across generations, resonated not merely as military triumphs, but as affirmations of cultural perseverance. The battle also influenced warfare tactics across Europe. The dramatic spectacle of nature's direct involvement in human conflict offered a new perspective for military thinking. Commanders began to reassess the inherent advantages of topography, realizing that landscapes could be as potent as battalions. Lessons learned here shaped strategies where nature's unpredictable nature dictated tactics, reshaping medieval military doctrines and highlighting the importance of local terrain and combat plans. Across Russia, the Battle of Lake Peipus became a cornerstone of cultural identity and narrative. Nevsky's transformation into a national symbol, further immortalized by Soviet filmmakers, echoed through Russian stories of resistance against foreign aggression. His legacy, woven into the cultural fabric, symbolized the ongoing struggle for identity amidst external pressures. As each generation retold the story, it evolved, cementing Nevsky as a timeless figure of defiance and resilience. Over time, scholars and historians analyzed the battle through various lenses, scrutinizing its facts and legacies. The narratives and interpretations shifted with each retelling, debating the blend of strategy and providence that defined Nevsky's choices. These discussions added depth to the legend, revealing layers that spoke to both the tangible and the mythical. What emerged was a rich tapestry of historical interpretation, a continuous dialogue that pondered the intricate weave of humanity's past and its lessons. Thus, the icy echoes of Lake Peipus continue to resonate, haunting the quarters of time with stories of courage, strategy, and the indomitable Eastern spirit. In the years following the Battle of Lake Peipus, an extraordinary legend began to take shape, spreading through the whispers of survivors and the imaginations of townspeople. This was not merely a tale of victory, it was perceived as a divine intervention that safeguarded a way of life. Around firesides and within taverns, these stories transformed Alexander Nevsky into a figure larger than life, a chosen warrior, both spiritual and strategic, standing firm against the tide of corruption. As these stories were passed down through generations, legend intertwined seamlessly with Russian folklore. Soon the battle was elevated into the realm of myth, with tales of knights swallowed by the ice and angels watching over the battlefield. It became more than a military conflict. It morphed into a cherished national epic that fueled pride and fostered unity, standing as a testament to defiance against foreign influence. Art also played a crucial role in nurturing this burgeoning mythos. Paintings, woodcuts, and epic ballads immortalized the momentous clash on that frigid lake. These were not just ordinary depictions, but rather profound reflections on a culture deeply rooted in its beliefs. Visual storytelling imbued Nevsky with an aura of sanctity, often portraying him among saints, bolstered by holy symbols. Such visual narratives shaped minds, ensuring that Nevsky was not merely a historical figure, but a paragon of divine resistance. Centuries later, as Europe stood on the brink of another conflict, the Soviets reimagined Nevsky to suit their narratives. In the face of World War II's ominous clouds, Nevsky's timeless defiance was resurrected as a beacon of Soviet strength. Sergei Eisenstein's 1938 film, Alexander Nevsky, vividly connected the medieval past with contemporary fears of Western aggression. The film depicted the knights as reflections of Nazi invaders, transforming an ancient saga into a resonant call for unity against external threats. The myth, thus reconfigured, rallied the people, merging past glories with modern-day resolutions. Yet beneath the layers of legend lies a narrative deeply grounded in the realities of history. Archaeologists and historians tirelessly examine the remnants of that bygone era, uncovering weapons and artifacts that whisper truths from the past. The Teutonic Knights, although formidable, faced an adversary well-versed in the land's secrets, with Nevsky skillfully utilizing the terrain to his advantage. The frozen lake, shrewdly chosen for its strategic benefit, revealed the intersection of nature and strategy. As historians piece together the past using artifacts and ancient chronicles, they offer a nuanced perspective that transcends embellishment, uncovering a story rich in leadership and courageous human choices. Alexander Nevsky himself was a complex figure, navigating a world fraught with challenge. Born into the Rurikid dynasty, his ascent to leadership came at a young age against a backdrop of Mongol threats and Western expansion. His prowess was not solely military, it was diplomatic, marked by skillful negotiations and alliances that secured Novgorod's autonomy. As a devout Orthodox Christian, his sense of duty extended beyond the battlefield, intertwining faith with statesmanship. Although sometimes controversial in his alliances, Nevsky embodied a leader whose decisions resonated with both the immediate demands and the aspirations of the future. However, the clash on Lake Peipus did not elicit uniform interpretations from the West. Teutonic chroniclers recounted their side with regret, mourning a lost crusade rather than celebrating a tale of resistance. For them, the battle was a sobering misjudgment with little acclaim. These contrasting accounts, vibrant in their diversity, enhance our understanding of medieval geopolitics, where triumphs and failures weave a complex tapestry in collective memory. Through historical scrutiny, we uncover the delicate interplay between fact and fiction that fuels mythmaking. The vivid image of cracking ice and divine intervention is as much a part of cultural myth as a reaction to a crisis. History, tempered by myths, preserves cultural identity, illustrating not only what happened, but why people chose to remember it in that specific way. While modern analysis strips away embellishments, it acknowledges that these stories cemented a sense of belonging and identity. As one considers Nevsky's legacy, is he revered for his actual achievements or as a flexible figure for shifting ideologies? Over centuries, he has been seen as both a saint and a symbol, reflecting a nation's endurance. His canonization strengthened the Russian spirit, yet the Soviets viewed him as a figurehead for their ideals. Nevsky's multifaceted portrayal raises questions about whether his legacy rests on genuine veneration or convenient symbolism. The way societies commemorate and recount past events speaks volumes about cultural evolution. The legend of Lake Peipus became a vessel for each era to highlight its values. Whether reinforcing orthodoxy or narrating resistance, the threads of folklore and memory are tightly woven together, transcending mere historical record to enrich cultural identity. Even today, Lake Peipus stands quietly in modernity, echoing the tales of its icy past. From its shores arises a symbol of timeless resistance, still resonating as an enduring part of a shared human narrative. The Battle of Lake Peipus served as a chilling and cautionary lesson in 13th century warfare on frozen landscapes. With knights and Orthodox warriors clashing over the icy expanse, this seemingly silent lake became a resounding boundary between ideologies, embodying the stark division of cultures vying for dominance. Here, beneath the unsettlingly still crystalline surface, two worlds, East and West, stood in opposition. The Catholic Crusaders, armored and determined, viewed this icy battleground as the final passage to reaching the heart of orthodoxy in the north. Their war cries echoed with the fervor of a religious conviction bent on expanding the boundaries of Christendom. With each clash of steel upon steel, the lake bore witness to a deeper conflict, a spiritual schism. As swords sang their metallic hymn and horses pounded their thunderous argument against the ground, these warriors were unconsciously part of a fractured dance choreographed by centuries of ideological rivalry. The clash between kingdoms at Lake Peipus was not solely for territory. It was a contest for the souls they believed resided beyond the frozen threshold. This was not simply a medieval skirmish. It was a spiritual and territorial upheaval that resonated far beyond its time. Here, civilization armed itself with faith, charged into the icy breach, and fought not merely for treaties and titles, but for the ideas that shaped empires. As the fire and rage of battle subsided, another narrative began to unfold. a tale whispered by the footsteps of Crusaders that might echo in the brittle world of frost and wind. The sight of thousands of knights crossing the frozen expanse captures the imagination, their armored forms silhouetted in the stark light beneath the bone-chilling sky. Their march, though intended as a display of righteous intent, encountered an elemental foe that made no distinction between divine mission and doomed defiance. With each hoofbeat on the ice came the audacious declarations of a civilization, unaware that the terrain beneath their feet harbored its own dark humor, eager to thwart human ambition with nature's icy intervention. The irony of history twists as surely as the cold wind upon the lake. Grand strategies faltered before the whims of elemental mischief. Where strategic valor failed, quirks of fate prevailed, making the lake a reminder of how nature, as unyielding as any night, can disrupt human designs. These tales, carried on the wind's whispers across the frosted plains, speak of majestic journeys towards divine approval, abruptly cut short by a lake's frozen heart. In all its strange beauty, Lake Peipus teaches us that medieval valor confronts not only seen and known enemies, but also the silent strategies held within nature's unfathomable realm. For the Orthodox defenders, Lake Peipus stood as more than just a battlefield. It became a monument to unwavering resilience. Under the command of Alexander Nevsky, these warriors were more than simply soldiers. They were the guardians of a culture threatened by foreign ambition. Their steadfast bravery ensured the continuation of Eastern Orthodoxy and the preservation of their distinct worldview. A worldview that perceived the battle not as a mere temporal skirmish, but as a sacred defense of spiritual identity. In triumph, they forge a tale of enduring identity, resisting against the seeming inevitability of cultural absorption. As the endless cycles of time pass, the mythology of Lake Peipus grows, enveloping mortal conflict in layers of legend. Alexander Nevsky, once a mere prince in a frosty struggle, was transformed through the ages into something more, becoming a guardian saint of Orthodox valor. By collecting and recounting these tales through art and song, Lake Peipus finds new life, translating human endeavor into timeless elegies of courage. Through the frames of films and the stanzas of epic poetry, the lake itself transformed over the centuries into a pilgrimage site, hallowed ground that attracts both minds of military genius and hearts of spiritual reflection. It became a frozen altar where echoes of past triumphs linger, guiding modern travelers to walk alongside the ghosts of bravely defiant warriors who faced Western Crusaders with unswerving belief in their cause. This ice-laden battlefield, arrestingly mystical and almost supernatural, becomes immortal ground where unseen forces weaponize the natural world. Lake Peipus, by freezing time and holding secrets within its layers of frost, offers a stern reminder of tempered limits, balancing hubris with humility. For the Western Knights, the lake stands as a bitterly ironic testament, a place where divine foresight met icy reality. Every armored descent beneath its surface tells of the limits imposed by nature, when material and celestial ambitions are thwarted by an environment that refused to be conquered. Today, beneath the deceptive calm of its waters, remains the silent echo of those locked in time, a testament to human endeavor, both mystifying and humbling. Relics of the past wait at the water's edge, rusting swords and shields, memories of valiant incursions now still against the unforgiving cold. In art and song, these narratives speak, translating histories and lives into continuous works of creativity. They ensure that anyone who hears the tune or sees the image might grasp not just the valor of yesterday, but the very humanity entangled in their noble, sometimes tragic struggles. Ultimately, Lake Peipus transcends mere geography, enduring as a spiritual monument. It resonates with stories of humanity unfittingly bold, etched into its icy demeanor. As history tells us more tales beneath the crisp ice and firm snow, we invite you to reflect on these echoes, finding your own appreciation for the past's intricate dance. Remember, as stories ripple through time, the past holds whispers for those who choose to listen. If this tale intrigued you, please support our channel with a like and subscribe for more captivating journeys into our shared history.